let's say, more than 1,000 years. I think that I can already move on. Okay, just a little word about myself. I work in the Commission, and I'm responsible for doing the coordination of international cooperation in the context of ICT research and innovation. Let me just say 2 or 3 words about Horizon 2020, reinforcing the message that was given this morning by Ambassador Kulach. We are talking about probably the largest research innovation program in the world. We're talking not only about 80 billion, which is the money that is being put directly into this, but actually probably 3 or 4 times this amount, because a lot of these activities are being leveraged with additional private investment through a number of public-private partnerships. Another important feature is the fact that we are targeting not only EU member states, but we are actually looking at enlarging this cooperation to countries around the world, and in this context, Arab countries play a very important role. The value of our program will be measured very much by our ability to really mobilize you to get and to connect with us. And then perhaps something very important, it's not just a matter of actually moving scientists, researchers, entrepreneurs from your countries to Europe. What we want is actually to have your expertise, your human capital connecting to what we are doing in Europe, in other parts of the world, and using you to really anchor important innovation activities also taking place in the Arab countries to promote global development. Something very important, Horizon 2020 is not only about research. Research is an element of it, but there is a number of very important activities dealing with innovation, dealing with entrepreneurship, dealing with the business world, involving startups and new companies, new ventures. And in this context, international cooperation is an essential feature. We need to target not the specific problem of one country, but problems that actually address, activities that address global problems and have the possibility of reaching a wider population. I mean, this just shows some of the axes of our cooperation. In red, we have countries that are, with whom we have some specific relationships in the form of coordinated calls, but we are also targeting other countries with whom we want to develop strength and strengthen our cooperation. Gulf countries are indicated, Mediterranean countries are indicated here, also other parts of the world, but here in the context that we are talking, I would like to emphasize especially Gulf countries and the Mediterranean countries where there is a very strong Arab presence. I mean, I'm not mentioning here Middle East because that's a very odd context or a very odd concept. Actually, depending on which language we are talking in Europe, we have actually different words to say, to refer to that context. You know probably that actually there are 3 major pillars of Horizon 2020. One being excellent science, the other industrial leadership, and the third societal challenges. These are not silos, actually. These activities link between itself very tightly. And as a matter of fact, within these areas, we see that ICT is largely present everywhere. It's in the excellent science with a number of activities. It is in industrial leadership where we have a specific and dedicated line, but it's also in all the so-called societal challenges. Let me say something more about excellent science. My colleague will develop this in greater detail. What I would like to say is that for us, this is not just a matter of actually providing the connectivity. It's a matter of going beyond the connectivity and to think about the added value activities that can be developed on the basis of this. We're talking about a knowledge society, so all the knowledge that can be shared, that can be developed, co-created through the use of these research infrastructures is of paramount importance. Industrial leadership, well, we have typical areas that had been already mentioned by many speakers before me. Okay, competent systems is a very common area, but the next generation computing, where we talked about the possibilities offered by cloud, the possibilities offered by high-performance computing, which is a resource that is becoming increasingly available for a larger community. and we want to use this as a way of actually pushing forward the limits and the possibilities of the current technology. Future internet, which for us actually includes also 5G, because we see 5G not just has a simple upgrade of having a little bit more capacity, but actually as a merger of what we now know as the fixed and the mobile infrastructure, making this as a global and pervasive communication possibilities. Content technologies. I mean, amongst these, we have on one side the important element, which is the multimedia content, the possibilities of using this to promote the dissemination of wider forms of culture, including revisiting and reconstructing some of the aspects of the past, but also some new developments, what we call the data value economy, where we actually look at data not only as a simple manipulation of numbers, but actually how to extract from that smarter management of some of the realities like smart cities, like connected objects. Of course, robotics, more advanced forms of interfaces, and photonics. I mean, to give an example, photonics allows you to slash by probably a factor of 10 the current consumption of electricity for illumination. And that's actually a significant part of the current consumption of energy. Let me just also mention very briefly two things. Internet of Things, which was already mentioned by the inspiring presentation that you had just before me. Connected smart objects is exactly the kind of concept that was so brilliantly presented before. Cybersecurity, a very important aspect. Human-centric digital age, this is perhaps a bit less obvious, but what we know is that nowadays, the fact that people are connected, that all generations are having their own mobile phone with them, with which they are able to communicate any moment to almost anywhere, also changes our relationship, our social relationship with the others, and that is something that needs further thinking to understand better what are the implications. Okay, just a very brief mention to ICT innovation. We are talking about access to innovation. We are talking about support to entrepreneurship and innovation. We are talking about disruptive innovation perspectives. This is integral part of Horizon 2020. Let me just then jump into the so-called societal challenges. We are talking about the activities that support ICT in health. I'm presenting here a number of topics that are already part of the current activities, and I'm not going into the detail of each one, but you can use this as a basis for your further thinking about possibilities of working with the EU in Horizon 2020. We're talking about energy efficient buildings, low carbon energy, especially adapting electricity grids to the new forms of mobility where we're going to have more and more electrical cars. Smart cities and communities, which is a holistic vision of all what can be changed in making the management of cities more energy efficient and smarter. Road, well, perhaps here it's not so obvious, but in many countries, road congestion is an issue. We need to find ways of making these modes of transport more efficient and more effective. I already talked about the green vehicles is another example where we are going to plug the car while you are working, because in reality, usual displacements are of less than 10 kilometers. Climate action, we have important activities dealing with waste management and water management. Water is going to be probably, it's already, I think, if you compare the price of the liter of water and oil, sometimes you get the impression, you realize that water is even more valuable than oil. But also, interesting aspects on the management of the public sector, management of the government, and ICT in learning and inclusion. That's a very important topic that we had been working for quite some time, and now we think that we are in the process of actually reaching the benefits of that investment, but we need to move from the lab into the real world, engage in these academic organizations, schools, students, teachers. Let me just finish with a few words about the global dimension of Horizon 2020. Well, what happens is that today, the center of innovation and research is not only focused on the developed countries. We have seen that actually there is an increasing number of patents coming from developing countries, or at least not developing, but the known core, the known usual suspects. We have also seen this in terms of publications, the typical indicators for research and development. Also, a very important thing is that many of the challenges that we are facing are not only at the level of a single country. They engage a whole region, a whole globe. If you're talking, for instance, of things like climate, if you're talking about things like security, just to quote two examples. I mean, EU remains an important actor in this area despite this diversification. So, to some extent, by engaging in a collaboration with the EU, that offers really the opportunity to connect each one of your countries and their communities to probably the most advanced economies in the world. And the access to this knowledge can really be translated into better development, in more jobs for the different countries, and ultimately a path for peace and stability. How can this be achieved? Well, we had been thinking about, on one side, developing partnerships with each of the countries, but also we think that on the other side there is a good opportunity for leapfrogging by not having to go through the same learning steps that had been used in the past. So profit from the fast learning curve. I mean, a few suggestions on how we can move forward. We thought that actually a good approach could be to find a way of developing a suitable forum to sit together, to identify which areas are most promising, then identify who will be the most relevant partners for such collaboration, so mobilize the organizations in the other world that can really join such kind of activities. In this case, we think that actually identifying a certain number of champions that can act as catalysts and multipliers for such cooperation activities, we think that is really an important step. And then see how we're going to do it. So what kind of joint activities can we envisage? This can be first the participation in ongoing or on projects that are being prepared, but also think about a more concrete and medium-term action plan, which will include necessarily some demonstration projects that can be, let's say, examples and flagships of how this cooperation can translate into tangible benefits. I mean, this is very much the main points that I would like to offer you as a kind of call for action. So I'll be staying here with my colleague for the next couple of days, or at least until tomorrow. I'll be willing to join you and to have some contacts on this matter. Thank you.